I knew something was off the second Orrin Pike came running, shoes squeaking like he'd lost control of his own feet. I was standing in the gowning corridor with Loretta Sloan, halfway through a walk of the Phil suite. She'd flagged a stopper lot that looked clean on paper but didn't feel right to her. Texture, maybe, or smell. She had a nose for bad news. Orrin looked like he wanted to melt through the floor. "Keaton wants you upstairs. Now. Quality war room." Didn't even look me in the eye when he said it. That told me everything. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from, and let's continue. I peeled off my outer gloves, tossed them in the bin, and checked the time. I was 39 then, running batch release and GMP compliance at a mid-sized plant outside Baltimore. Name's Hollis, and I wasn't some clipboard jockey. I was the final physical signature before anything left that sterile fill line. No product moved unless I saw it, touched it, and signed it. As I walked past the decon station, I could already feel it in my chest. Tight, electric. That pressure you get when something you built is about to be tested by people who don't understand why it matters. I'd wired every gate in our quality system to keep cowboys from shoving batches through on gut feel. The backbone of it was the guarantor protocol. Every 2 hours, the signer had to physically verify chain of custody. Not a password, not a checkbox. Presence. It escalated cleanly. 60 minutes, warning. 120 minutes, controlled stop. 180 minutes, hard lock. Bram had signed off on every step. It wasn't optional, and it wasn't born out of paranoia. I'd worked somewhere years earlier where a batch slipped through with missing documentation. Supervisor forced it. Regulators came in hot. Only person they pointed to was the QA signer, me. I nearly lost my license for something I didn't even authorize. I never let that happen again. Halfway up the stairs, Mina Harlow from payroll waved from her office. Not a chatty wave, "You're about to find out what I already know" wave. Her look said this wasn't about stoppers. This was a shift in gravity. Keaton was doing something reckless. I'd heard whispers. Word was, he thought HR offboarding meant release authority vanished automatically. It doesn't. The controlled signer list doesn't follow HR forms. It follows documented, validated chain of command. When I stepped into the war room, I saw Keaton Calder sitting in his father's chair, legs crossed like a CEO. Next to him, some guy in a hoodie with a tablet, smiling like the smartest guy in the room. Dax, I'd find out later. I didn't sit. I just stood there and waited. Because I already knew this wasn't about the stoppers, this was a stunt. Keaton didn't wait for me to sit. He launched right in like I'd interrupted his keynote, said this wasn't about any one shift or any one batch. Said we were entering a new era of operational flexibility. His words, not mine. It was that fake smooth tone people use when they think business change is a vibe you sell, not a series of decisions with legal consequences. Dax introduced himself without getting up, said his full name, added MBA, and launched into a monologue about culture redesign and efficiency pathways. Every sentence sounded like a slide deck. He kept tapping on that tablet like he was more comfortable with bullet points than eye contact. When I looked at him, he looked at Keaton, not like a teammate, like someone watching an experiment. I didn't bother unpacking their nonsense. I asked one question, and I asked it plain. "Where's Bram?" Keaton gave me this slow, smug look like he'd been waiting for it. "In the air, private investor meeting, offline on purpose. I'm in charge this week." He waited, like I was supposed to clap. I didn't. Then he dropped the act, said they were streamlining, and my role was no longer aligned with the vision, not moved, not restructured, eliminated. He used the word like it had been rehearsed, and he said it in front of Dax, Orrin, and 2 managers who had nothing to do with my org chart. Like this was a performance. I kept my voice steady. "Are you terminating me effective immediately?" Keaton nodded with this polite little smile. "We're letting you go today." Then he added the kicker. "We'll need you to transfer your release authority and any access you have to the release system." That's when Dax jumped in, leaned forward like he was tossing out a helpful idea. "Could you just write down whatever you use to approve the batches so we can keep momentum?" Like I was handing over a Netflix login. I looked straight at him and said, "Batch release isn't a password. It's legal responsibility tied to physical verification. You want continuity? You follow the protocol. If I'm removed, the site enters controlled hold after 120 minutes. That's not a threat. That's how Bram had it designed." Keaton laughed. Not loud, more like a cough he thought sounded superior. "We'll work around it," he said, like the system was a door you could shoulder through. Then he turned to Orrin. "If Hollis gets difficult, call security." Orrin looked like someone had poured ice water down his back. Kid couldn't even meet my eyes. I didn't argue. I didn't give them a speech. I set my badge on the table. Set my site-issued tablet next to it. No slamming, no drama, just clean. Then I checked the wall clock. Looked Keaton right in the face and said, "You've got 2 hours before the system treats this like a chain of custody break. Good luck explaining that to everyone who has to sign their name to a deviation." Then I turned and walked out. Calm. Straight-backed. Keaton was still smirking like he'd won something. I pushed through the front doors, didn't slow down, and didn't look back. Instead of heading to the parking lot, I crossed the street like I had somewhere better to be. Borden sat low and dim on the corner, same as always, like it didn't care what kind of day anyone was having. That's why I went there. Inside, it smelled like old wood and coffee that had been working since dawn. Tate Borden stood behind the bar, wiping a glass that didn't need wiping. He saw my face, took in the pace I walked in with, and didn't ask a single question. I took a stool by the window where I could see the plant entrance straight across the road. From there, the whole place looked normal. Trucks moving, people walking in, badge readers blinking green. It always looks normal right before something breaks. Tate set a mug in front of me first. "Start here," he said, calm and steady. Then he added a glass of water like it was part of a routine. "Stronger later if you need it." I wrapped my hands around the coffee and said, "I might need both kinds of patience today." He nodded once and left me alone, which is exactly what I paid him for. Here's the truth about days like that. You don't get a clean play-by-play. You get fragments. People don't call meetings when things go wrong. They whisper, they text, they send what they can without getting caught, and the system logs the rest. My phone buzzed before the coffee cooled. Noah Rigsby, voice message. I played it with the volume low. "Hollis, I'm not supposed to be calling you, but this is bad. Keaton's telling supervisors to keep the line running while QA figures itself out. I told them that's not how this works." He sounded like he was hiding in a closet. Good instinct. I didn't respond. Not yet. Another buzz. "Loretta. They're acting like this is optional. I told them hold means hold. They told me to stay in my lane." That was Loretta. No extra words. No filler. That meant escalation, whether they understood it or not. I took a sip of coffee and kept my eyes on the front doors. People were still walking in, heads down, moving faster than usual. Nobody walked out. Around 40 minutes after I left, my phone gave me the first clean signal that mattered. Automated alert, guarantor protocol, verification interval approaching, chain of custody continuity required, no drama, no flashing lights, just a line of text that didn't care about anyone's title. I let out a slow breath. "There it is," I said, more to myself than anyone else. Tate glanced over but didn't interrupt. Another message came through. "Mina. They tried to rush your final paperwork. I slowed it down. Call me later." That told me two things. One, Keaton was already trying to make it official. Two, Mina had decided this wasn't something she wanted her name tied to without a record. She wasn't helping me. She was protecting herself, which in that building was the same thing. Then Oren surprised me. He sent a photo, war room whiteboard. Keaton had written "no bottlenecks" in big block letters like he was coaching a team. Under it, Dax had added, "move fast, fix later." I stared at it for a second, then set my phone down flat on the bar. "That your building?" Tate asked, finally stepping closer. "Yeah," I said. "And that's their plan." He looked at the screen, then back at me. "That's not a plan. That's a mess with confidence." I almost smiled, but didn't. Across the street, the front doors kept opening and closing. Same rhythm, different energy. You could feel it even from a distance. People walked in tense, shoulders tight, like they already knew something wasn't right. Nobody came out relaxed. Fear spreads fast in places like that, faster than any memo. And it does one of two things. Makes people lock into procedure, or makes them try to outrun it. Keaton was the second kind. Always would be. Tate slid a heavier glass toward me this time. No comment. Just set it down. "You look like a man waiting on a machine," he said, "to do exactly what it was built to do." I picked up my phone, kept it face up on the bar, and nodded once. "That's exactly what I'm doing." Then I unlocked the screen and waited for the next alert to hit. My phone buzzed again, sharp and quick, like it had something urgent to say. Another voice note from Noah. I played it low, leaning closer to the bar. In the background, I could hear the plant breathing. Intercom beeps, doors cycling, someone talking too loud like volume could fix confusion. "Hollis, he's pushing hard now. Noah whispered. Dax is asking for temporary release rights so they can avoid downtime. I told him that's not a thing. He said I'm being fear-based. I let the message end and set the phone down without replying. That word, fear-based, always shows up right before someone does something stupid on purpose. A few minutes later, the system spoke again. Quality hold pre-trigger. Verification window nearing expiration. That was the shift, not a reminder anymore. Now it was documented risk. The system had started writing the story, line by line, time-stamped and clean. Anyone with authority could read it later and see exactly who chose what and when. I took a slow sip of water and kept my eyes on the plant. Jasper Wedd popped into the shift chat next. Someone forwarded me the screenshot. Label printer queue just paused, he wrote. Controlled raw cage doors are restricted pending QA confirmation. They're going to blame me, but I'm not opening anything without a signature. That sounded exactly like Jasper, tired, honest, and not interested in being a scapegoat. Another message came in from Loretta. He's telling them to keep filling and log it as pending QA. I told them that turns one deviation into 10. He said we'll reconcile later. I shook my head once, slow. That line, keep filling, sounds efficient if you don't understand what you're actually asking people to do. It means build a problem now and hide it later. It means push risk downstream and hope nobody notices until it's too late. I picked up my phone and finally sent Noah one message. Do not hero this. No extra words. He knew what it meant. People think bravery in a place like that is pushing forward under pressure. It's not. Real backbone is stopping when someone powerful tells you not to and letting them own the decision. A minute later, my phone lit up again. Not a message this time. A system notification tied to user activity. I didn't have the full picture yet, but I could already see the outline. Dax had tried to force something inside the electronic system. Some kind of role change, something he thought he could click into existence. What he actually did was trigger a deviation. The system didn't argue with him. It just logged it. User ID, timestamp, action attempted, denied, and that entry didn't stay local. It went out to distribution, QA leadership, site leadership, and external validation. Silas Wren would see it, and Silas didn't bend for anyone. I leaned back slightly on the stool, feeling the weight settle into something colder, more controlled. Then my phone started lighting up in a different way. Calls, messages, Keaton, one after another. I watched them stack up without touching the screen, let them ring out, let them sit unread. I wasn't going to be the release valve for a mess he created. I wanted the system to do what it was built to do. No emotion, no argument, just consequences. And the cleanest part was this. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't inside. I wasn't logged in. I wasn't touching a single control point. I was sitting in a bar with a glass of water while their decisions ran straight into guardrails that had already been approved. Tate leaned on the counter a little, watching me watch the phone. You sure you don't want to go fix it before it gets ugly? He asked. I picked up the glass, took a slow drink, and set it back down with care. It's already ugly, I said. They just haven't seen their own face yet. Then I turned the phone slightly so I could see every notification the second it hit, and I waited for the next line in the record to write itself. Just short of 2 hours after I walked out, my phone buzzed with a message that hit me like a warning bell. Noah. Keaton wants me in the war room. He says sign off a temporary continuation. What do I do? I texted back fast. You tell him you're not the responsible signer. You tell him to document his request in writing. A few minutes later, Noah forwarded me a screenshot. Keaton had messaged him directly. Keaton, stop hiding behind policy. Either help or get out of the way. That line mattered. It wasn't just tone, it was pressure. And pressure on a QA associate during an active compliance event turns into liability faster than most execs can pronounce deviation. Then Oren chimed in again. Voice note this time. Whispered like someone was going to round a corner and catch him mid-sentence. Dax is saying the guarantor protocol was just something you set up personally, he said. He's telling people they can override it by reclassifying the batch state. Oren didn't even know what that meant, but I could hear the panic in his voice. When someone like Dax throws around language that sounds official but isn't, that's how systems break. My phone buzzed again, system alert. Verification interval exceeded, controlled stop sequence initiated. That meant the protocol had crossed the line. Not optional anymore. The system wasn't waiting, it was responding. No alarms, no flashing lights, just controlled holds on open process steps, frozen electronic actions, batch status flags, and a record trail that would follow the product for years. It was a quiet lockdown with teeth. Loretta texted next. Line leads getting mixed messages. Keaton saying keep going. QA saying pause and wait. People are scared and rushing at the same time. That combination right there, that's how mistakes happen. When operators don't know which voice to trust and the clock keeps ticking. Then Mina called. Not a text. A call. That alone meant it was serious. She skipped hello. Keaton's assistant tried to push through your termination paperwork, she said. Told payroll to remove your authority immediately. I told them GMP authority doesn't get removed by HR. It gets removed by procedure. I logged the request. She didn't sound mad. She sounded like someone walking through a minefield on tiptoe. And this part I didn't find out until days later. Bram had documented it in his after-action notes. During this exact window, Keaton called a board member, the one with a known fixation on cost cuts. And that guy told him, show results fast. That wasn't encouragement. That was pressure. The kind that skips chain of command and whispers through back doors. The kind of shove that doesn't show up in meeting minutes. Meanwhile, Dax was trying to act like this was all normal, until it wasn't. Noah later told me what happened when the system logged the failed roll override tied to Dax's ID. He said Dax stared at the screen like it had betrayed him, then muttered, I didn't agree to personal liability. That's the moment where corporate fantasy meets actual regulation, where PowerPoint dreams die in a validated audit trail, and then came the voicemail. Keaton, sounding warm. Too warm. Like he'd just remembered we were old friends. No hard feelings, Hollis, but we need you to come in and do your little check so we can keep production moving. Little check. He said it like it was nothing, like he was asking me to unlock a vending machine. I didn't call him back. I didn't text. I just stared out the window at the plant and let that phrase burn into my head. Little check. That's what they always call it right before they ask you to fall on the sword for them. I looked at the building like it was something I'd once built and now had to watch being torn apart by children with clipboards. And I said it out loud just once. Not this time. Tate, who'd been standing nearby polishing a clean glass, heard me. He nodded once, slow. Good. 'Cause you've been the fall guy long enough. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I recognized, but hadn't seen since our last audit cycle. Silas Wren. I picked up on the first ring. His voice was steady, but I could hear the tension below it. Hollis, I received an escalation notice tied to your verification protocol. Site leadership is asking me to sign off an override. I leaned forward, rested my elbow on the bar. I'm not on site, I said. Keaton terminated me. No badge, no access. Any override would break the validation package you helped write. Silas didn't respond right away. I added, if you touch it, your name becomes part of their mistake. You know that. Silas exhaled through his nose. Are they attempting to bypass your physical presence requirement? They already tried, I said. System logged a deviation automatically. User ID tied to Dax. Then Keaton's admin tried next. Didn't work. The system wrote that part too. I didn't say it with pride. I said it the same way you'd say it's raining. Silas was quiet for a second longer, then said, understood. He hung up. 5 minutes later, he did what professionals do. He sent an email. It went to the site quality distribution, CC'd me as the signer of record listed in the validation package. He included the time of the override request, who made it, what system element they were trying to bypass, and his refusal. 1 paragraph, neutral tone, legal grade clarity. That email ended up being one of the cleanest, most useful pieces of evidence in the entire chain. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was written, external, and unemotional. A little while later, Noah sent me a full download from the deviation system. The export showed multiple failed role change attempts, first tied to Dax's account, then one tied to Keaton's executive assistant. That wasn't a misstep. That was a pattern. And patterns tell stories when investigations start. Meanwhile, the plant shift chat had turned into a pressure cooker. People screenshot everything when things feel wrong, and they were feeling it hard. Jasper posted, controlled materials locked behind QA step. I don't have permissions. No one does. Loretta posted, schedules falling apart. Keaton is blaming QA bottlenecks in front of operators. I learned later from Loretta, face-to-face, that Keaton tried to walk the floor like a coach, told people anyone who stopped the line wasn't a team player. One operator shot back, so you're signing the batch? Loretta said Keaton didn't answer, just walked away like someone had cut his mic. Then my phone buzzed again. Next level alert. Hard lock window entered. That was the edge. The final countdown before a full quality hold enforced itself at 180 minutes without a verified physical check. Once crossed, recovery paths get narrower by the minute. The system was still giving them a chance to fix it right. But it was warning everyone that the longer it went without verification, the more doors were going to close. Permanently. Tate didn't say anything. He just poured me a drink and set it down like I'd finally earned it. He asked, "So how does this end?" I looked at the glass, then at the plant. Either they stop and wait like adults, or the system forces them to stop like children. I didn't even lift the glass. I just left it there on the bar and kept my phone in view. Then the message came in. Short. From Oren. Dax is asking if he should leave. Keaton told him to stay. Dax is sweating, everybody is sweating. I didn't reply. I just looked through the window, past the street, straight into the front doors of that plant, because the next move wasn't going to be silent, it was going to echo. The alert came in just after 11. Sharp tone, bold header, no room for misinterpretation, quality hold enforced, release function suspended, deviation escalation issued. That was it. Final line crossed, no more warnings, no more choices. I didn't have to be inside to know what it looked like. I'd seen it happen once before, years ago. Different site, different mess, and the signs were always the same. Noah's voice note hit a minute later, full panic underneath a whisper he was barely holding on to. Batch record stations just froze. The label printers locked up. Supervisors are yelling in the hall like they got ambushed. They're acting like the system is being mean to them. I could picture it. People slamming buttons harder like that would change anything. As if compliance was something you could shout your way past. Then Loretta texted. Lines stopped, not dramatic, just stopped. People are standing around holding tools like statues. That stillness is worse than sirens. That's when it really hits. The realization that nobody in the building has the authority to move a single item forward. Not without someone stepping into the chain, and there wasn't anyone left who could. Keaton did exactly what I expected. He blamed me. I didn't hear it firsthand, but Noah wrote it down as soon as it happened and sent me the log later. Hollis booby-trapped the plant. That's the classic move. Turn the guardrails into sabotage after you've already ignored every warning. But Dax, he was the one who snapped. Oren sent a voice message from a stairwell. Said Dax stood up mid-sentence in the war room and said, "I'm not going down for this." Grabbed his backpack like it was a fire drill and headed for the exit. Keaton tried to stop him. "We'll fix it," he yelled, like that was supposed to matter. Dax didn't even look back. That's what happens when you build a fantasy around confidence and someone opens the window. The air rushes out fast. Later, much later, I found out Dax wasn't just some consultant Keaton brought in to shake things up. Bram had brought him in, quietly, months earlier. The original plan was to stress test Keaton's decision-making under pressure. Controlled environment, oversight, notes. But Keaton went off script, turned a simulation into a live event, turned a test into fire, and it got uglier. Bram's investigation notes, ones I wasn't supposed to see but did, named the board member Keaton had called, the one who said, "Show results fast." That board member had outside financial ties to a competitor. A shutdown made our plant look unstable. That made our clients nervous. Nervous clients shift contracts. It wasn't just about Keaton's ego. It was about someone giving him a push while holding a match behind their back. Keaton tried to call Bram again, multiple times. No answer. Bram had this thing. When he needed to think, he went full silent. No Wi-Fi, no calls, no tether. It was a great habit for personal clarity. Terrible habit when your son was burning down a manufacturing site. Then Silas forwarded me another email. Second request from the site. This one more desperate. They framed it as a validation necessity. Tried to twist the language to make it sound like not signing was the risk. Silas wrote back with one line. "No authorized signer present. Override refused." I stared at that email on my phone, right there at the bar, and I felt something I hadn't expected after all the anger, all the buildup. Relief, not satisfaction, not victory. Just a clean, sharp breath that said the system held. The process did what it was designed to do. And for once, the person who built the fire wasn't going to hand the extinguisher to someone else and walk away. They were going to sit in it, all by themselves. My phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in years, and my stomach locked up like a valve. Bram called her. No text, no warning. Just a direct call like it was still 2002 and he owned every second of my day. I answered. His voice was low and exact, every word like it had to pass through a blade first. "I'm looking at notifications that my site is in a quality hold and my external validator refused an override." Explain. He didn't ask how I was. Bram wasn't built for comfort. He was built for containment and consequence. I kept my voice even. Keaton terminated me, publicly, told me to hand over release authority like it was a company laptop. I followed protocol, surrendered my badge, left the site. I paused only long enough to breathe. The guarantor protocol did exactly what you designed it to do when the chain breaks. There was a long silence. I heard cabin noise behind him. Commercial jet hum, maybe private. Didn't matter. The sound of someone still in motion. Then he asked the only question that mattered. Did you touch anything after you left? No, I said. I wasn't on site. Everything I know came through alerts, staff messages, and the deviation export Noah pulled after the hard lock hit. Another pause. Then Bram said, flat. Keaton's telling people you're holding the plant hostage. That one nearly made me laugh. I said, a hostage taker demands something with a gun. I demanded nothing. Your process demanded presence. Your son removed the responsible signer. That was the pivot point. His tone didn't rise, but it shifted. Slower, sharper, cold math creeping in behind the words. I'm landing in under an hour. I'm going straight to site. Listen to me carefully. Do not fix this for free. Do not fix it under humiliation. You hear me? I blinked. That line hit harder than any of Keaton's jabs. Bram never protected people. Not like that. Not unless he'd already calculated your value past the drama. I said, I'll meet you at the entrance, but I'm not your employee anymore. He didn't argue, just said, we'll handle that part in person. Then he hung up. Right after that, Mina texted me. Bram's office just called. They're asking for timestamps. I'm sending them everything I logged. Mina didn't pick sides. She picked paperwork. That's why she was golden. 2 minutes later, Loretta sent her final update before the floodgates broke. Keaton's telling people to stay positive, so people are not positive. I could see it without seeing it. Keaton trying to smile his way through a mutiny, tossing out empty lines to operators who had just watched a building shut itself down because the only adult in the room got walked out. I pushed my stool back, pulled a couple bills from my wallet, and dropped them on the counter. Tate looked up from where he was wiping the same glass again. That it? I nodded once. Bram's coming back. Tate didn't smirk, didn't blink, just said, don't blink first. He wasn't talking about a bar fight. He was talking about power, the kind that walks in silent and leaves with names. Bram's car didn't park. It landed. Door swung open before the engine cut. He stepped out like the pavement owed him rent. 66 years old, still built like he could bench a pallet, face like poured concrete. No coat, no bag, no time for theater. He didn't offer a handshake, just pointed toward the entrance and said, upstairs. Inside, everything felt wrong. Lights on, machines humming, people moving, but no sound. That's what a quality hold does. Turns workers into ghosts. Turns confidence into a rumor nobody wants to repeat out loud. We took the stairs. He didn't slow down once. I wasn't in the war room for the first exchange. Bram went in alone, but I didn't have to be there to understand it. He walked me through it later in his office, and Noah sent me a voice note before the hour was up. Keaton tried to dump it all on me, said I overreacted, said I refused to cooperate, said I designed the system to punish people, all the usual deflection. Bram didn't even turn my way. He just looked at his son and said, did you terminate the responsible signer while I was unreachable? Keaton tried to explain, fast and shallow. Dax? Gone. Chair empty. Bram didn't even ask where he went. That silence said enough. Then Bram asked for the deviation log. Keaton didn't have it. Noah did. That moment told Bram everything. When the most important document of the day is in a junior's hand, not leadership's, you already know who's actually doing the work. Bram called Silas on speaker. Asked if an override was valid under the current deviation path. Silas answered like he was reading a courtroom transcript. No, not with the signer removed. Section 10, paragraph 4. Bram didn't argue. He just turned away from the phone. He turned to me. Fix it, he said. I looked him in the eye. Not as an employee, not under your son, and not while my name soaks up the consequences of his decisions. Then I gave him my terms. Multi-year contract. Authority over all batch release calls. No interference. Direct line to Bram. No Keaton filter. Private office near QA documentation, not in a fishbowl. And Noah, full protection. No retaliation, no demotion. Bram didn't flinch. He asked tight questions. What does it cost? What does it prevent? How fast can you restore operations? I answered. He nodded. Deal made. But the last term was the one that cracked the glass in the room. Keaton would stay at the company but stripped. No signature authority. No power to remove quality controls. Bram called it development. We all knew what it was. A muzzle. I didn't gloat. Didn't blink. Just nodded once. Because real revenge doesn't come with shouting. It comes with a pen and a silence so loud the person across from you can't even look up. That room didn't feel like victory. It felt like justice settling into the cracks. I walked back into the building like I'd never left, straight through the front. No hesitation, no sidesteps. The badge they reissued clicked green. The doors unlocked like the system already knew I'd be back. The air inside the QA documentation room always smelled the same. Disinfectant, processed paper, faint toner. It didn't smell like urgency or panic. It smelled like order. I liked that. Noah was waiting just outside the controlled access point. His face looked worn, eyes dull, lips pressed tight, but he stood up straight when he saw me. Didn't talk too much, just said, "I didn't sign anything." I nodded. "Good, that's how you keep your life." I stepped through the access check, went to the terminal, and executed the physical verification like it was day one. Presence confirmed. Step logged, witness verified. No drama, no improvisation, just the procedure followed like it was law, because in a place like this, it is. The system didn't throw confetti, it just accepted the action. One green bar turned solid, and the building moved from freeze to function without a single word. Loretta later told me the exact moment the floor felt it. Not when the alert stopped, not when the printers came back online. It was when the shouting stopped. That's when the operators finally breathed. Someone with real authority had rejoined the chain. Jasper filed the first status update. Materials began unlocking in the right order, one cage at a time, one form at a time. He wrote, "No skipping, no backfill, just clean entries." That's how you stop a recall before it's born, by making sure no one has to lie just to keep up. Silas sent me a system email a few hours later confirming the deviation path was stable. He attached the entire call log from the previous day, each entry timestamped, each request matched with a name. That email didn't just protect me, it wrapped a safety net around the company Bram had spent decades building. Later that afternoon, Bram pulled me aside. We stood in the corridor by the server room where nobody pretended to overhear. He said, "Dax was never supposed to be let off the leash. He was a test, not a fire starter." Then he added, "That board member who told Keaton to act fast, he's done." He looked tired for the first time. "You didn't just save a batch," he said. "You showed me who would burn my house to look like a hero." Dax disappeared. Mina told me weeks later that legal froze his invoices and sent a letter asking for documentation. He never replied. Visionaries don't usually come back to explain the wreckage. Keaton stayed, technically. His badge still worked, but the building didn't look at him the same. He wasn't a prince anymore. He was a lesson. That night, I went back across the street, sat down at the bar. Tate poured without asking. He looked at me for a second and said, "Feel bad?" I shook my head. "I feel clean, because the best kind of payback isn't loud. It's walking back in under your own name, flipping the switch, and watching everything restart because you said so." Hold up, can I ask you something real quick? If you've got the hype feature, tap it right now to support this video and help it reach more people, then please subscribe and hit like. It's one click and it matters. And drop a comment. When someone with power tries to force you to break your own rules, do you hold the line and risk everything, or do you bend so you don't get crushed?